I'm Chanala, and this is the weekly squeeze breakdown on Moral Edge. All right, let's imagine together, you and me, okay? Sit up, listen up. What does it mean to be 55 years old, to have aged out of the Army 15 years ago, to have a full built life, work and family, and a book you've written and tours you've led, and then to watch October 7th happen on a Shabbat morning and think, I need to go back. Not someone should do something, not I hope the Army handles this, but I need to go back. And then to actually do it. To dig out a uniform you haven't worn since the Second Lebanon War, to drive south alone, to stand at a heavily guarded base without papers, without a call-up notice, and spend 2 full days refusing to leave until someone lets you in. To be told, go home, we'll call you, and respond essentially, no, I live here too. This is mine too. That's the story I want to tell you today. Not because it's a war story, though it is, and not because it's an Israel story, though it is that too, but because it's a story about something we've almost stopped believing in, something that gets dismissed online as naive and treated like a relic from a different century. It's a story about duty, about what happens when duty stops being abstract and becomes a choice you make on a Tuesday morning when nobody's watching. Our guest name is Dr. Tuvia, London-born, Cardiff-raised, Israeli by choice, educator, tour guide, author, and as it turned out, the oldest combat medic serving in Gaza. The second oldest soldier in the entire operation, behind only the chief of staff. And I'm not telling you this just to be cute and get likes, but do give this a thumbs up. I tell you because it matters, because it says everything about what kind of people are in that story and what kind of people are in this country and what kind of country produces them. Now, I know some of you are thinking, Chanala, is this going to be another rah-rah Israel episode? Because you've heard them from me before, and that's fine, but not everyone comes to Moral Edge for that. Fair enough. So the answer is no. This is not a propaganda episode. It's not a recruitment ad. I'm not going to just pretend that everything is fine or that the questions surrounding this war are simple. They're not. We've talked about those questions on the show before, about who serves and who doesn't, about the draft, about the issues that, run through Israeli society. Okay, those are real and they're not going away. But in the middle of all that, there are people doing things that are genuinely extraordinary. Not extraordinary in the way social media uses that word where everything's extraordinary and therefore nothing is. Extraordinary in the old sense, okay? Outside the ordinary, outside what you expect, outside what most people would do. Tuvia Book is one of those people. And his unit, Palmar, is it Palmar? Making sure. For the Hebrew acronym, Combat Medical Extraction, is full of heroes. So here we go. We're going to have a conversation with Dr. Tuvia here. Since October 7th, his unit has evacuated nearly 3,000 wounded soldiers from the front lines of Gaza. 3,000. And they broke something called the golden hour rule, the assumption that you can't get a critically wounded soldier from the battlefield to an operating room in under 60 minutes. They proved that assumption wrong. And in doing so, they cut the IDF's mortality rate amongst the wounded nearly in half compared to the Second Lebanon War. That's amazing. That's what happens when professionalism and speed and technology and a refusal to accept the status quo collide with human courage. All right, let's get into it. We have so many questions for you, and I am so pleased to have you here. Welcome.
Pleasure to be here.
You look like you've had a busy day.
You've
had a busy life?
Yeah.
All right. So before you came, I was just on my phone for a second and I was clicking on some of the links that you sent me. And then I realized that video with Idan Amendia was with you.
Correct.
Okay. So I want you to fill us in. I don't know if we're going to start from the beginning because we don't have that much time. Today, I want to talk about your unit. I want to talk about what you saw, what you experienced, why you went back. and why you didn't have to, and what Israel looks like now from your perspective as a medic, right? So how was your day today? Where have you been in the last 24 hours? Let's start from there.
Well, I just came up from our unit. We have like 3 days off and going back on Sunday. I'll be spending the whole Pesach, the Festival of Freedom, with the unit, which is also quite emotional.
You're doing your Leil HaSeder with your unit?
Of course, with the Jews and the non-Jews. We have Druze people in our unit as well.
Have one of your non-Jews send me a video so I can post it on Instagram.
Sure. And it's something very emotional about it. The Hatikva finishes with the Hatikva Shnot Alpayim Liot Am Choshi B'Artzeinu, the hope of 2,000 years, to be a free people in our land. So people forget that 100 years ago, a Jewish soldier was an oxymoron, just like a Jewish farmer was, just like no one had spoken Hebrew for 2 millennia. So to be in a unit with incredible people from all walks of life, religious, secular, new immigrants, veteran Israelis, Jewish, non-Jewish, left-wing, right-wing, younger, older, some a bit older, and all once you put this uniform on, it's a great equalizer. We're all there literally for one purpose and one purpose alone, and that's to save holy lives. And for me, it's a tremendous zechut, a tremendous honor to be in that unit. It really is, without being kitsch or cheesy, Avodat Kodesh, it's holy work.
I don't think people understand what you do, so I want to explain to them a little bit, because when you live abroad, you might not understand exactly how real things get on the battlefield. You have spent hundreds of days pulling men out of a war zone. You've looked at people who've almost gone and have been on the brink, and you've made sure that they survived, stabilized them, and that they were given the best care that they can get. Let's go for the deep questions first. Does that change how you feel about God?
No, at the end of the day, growing up, I never had a name. I was just called the rabbi's son. I'm a PK, a preacher's kid. We have a support group as well for people like us. And I always grew up with a lot of faith. I grew up with a religious Zionist youth movement called B'nai Akiva. And one of the factors that made me, at the age of 55, push myself back into the army was the way that I was raised and the values I was raised with. So on the one side, my mom's family, her parents were the sole survivors from the Shoah, from the Holocaust. My late grandfather came from Poland, my late grandmother from Hungary.
I think we might be cousins.
And my mother literally grew up with a mother and a father and a brother and a sister, full stop, and a half-brother. That was her whole family on the planet Earth, and one unmarried aunt. So to grow up in the shadow of the Holocaust, knowing that if there would have been a state of Israel 10 years earlier, there wouldn't have been a Holocaust, was a big thing. My grandfather on the other side, I'll write all about this in my book, about what motivates me, to go back and to serve now. My grandfather on the other side, I was named after, his name was Toby, but his Hebrew name was Tuvia, fought in the British Army in World War II against the Nazis for 6 years, also in a medical unit as well, North Africa and Italy. So I've got those two genes.
You have tiger blood. That's what we
call it.
call it.
On the other hand, tiger blood and also the shadow of the Holocaust, and also to be educated in the Zionist youth movement. And we were fed in our veins about all the stories of Zionist heroes and heroines.
You're living out your childhood dreams. It's like every kid's dream to be an IDF hero.
Well, that's what
Joe.
The late Hannah Senesh wrote. One of her poems she wrote was a voice called, and I went. So I felt this voice calling me. It started after high school. I finished in Cardiff. I didn't grow up in Cardiff. I grew up in South Africa and in Lancashire. Well, only the last few years I lived in Cardiff. But basically, everyone took a gap year after high school, and I took my gap year. And during that gap year, I met Israeli kids, and that's what changed my life and really made me follow the path less traveled. Because most people after the gap year went back to college, and I stayed. Partly because of the idea of service. Like we obsessed about going to high school, about going to university. They're obsessed about serving their country and our people.
But things have changed since you've been in B'nai Akiva. I mean, did you think we'd be at such a place where we would be once again facing the second round of Iran's psychosis?
No, listen, when I pushed my way back into the army in 2023, I didn't think that I'd still been in 2024, 25, 26. I mean, this is a crazy situation.
This is intense. I mean, the booms, I mean, we're living in an active war zone, and it's been a month.
Well, and to answer your question about why the age of 55 I went in, I was there on that Black Shabbat on October the 7th in Modi'in, which is not too far away from here, hearing all the booms and the numbers of point of kidnapped and killed. And these are crazy numbers. And everyone had an emotion. Everyone who loves Israel, who lived in Israel, was attached to Israel. And my deepest emotion was of anger. Like, why is this happening? We're after the Holocaust. We have our own army, our own country.
How dare we?
Where was our intelligence? Where's our soldiers? And my first thought was, what can I do? And that's why I fought to fight. I fought to fight. That's exactly what I did. That's why I pushed my way back into the army. That's why I literally negotiated my way back into a base.
I remember October 7th, though. People showed up. Most people with weapons were actively shooting down terrorists. So what does it mean that they didn't allow you?
Well, first of all, in the reserves, in the Miluim in Israel, the cutoff age is 40. So my service, the Second Lebanon War, I was basically 40, and that was my last war, so I thought. But like most Israelis, I kept a uniform just in case. And that just in case my mom came 17 years later.
Do you carry a weapon during the year?
Yeah, I have my two friends with me, Smith and Wesson.
Oh, nice. Nice to meet you guys. Thank you for your service.
I do, because I'm a tour guide, and I live, I cross in and out of Judea and Samaria, so I have my own personal weapon.
You are literally Israel Aliyah personified. Tour guide, soldier, medic, passionate, Bnei Akiva, author, successful. All kavod.
You forgot the blue eyes.
And handsome and single, ready to mingle.
Anyway.
Details in the show notes.
So my first thought basically was that actions speak louder than words. And let's not forget, the first commandment, the first Jews God, Avraham and Sarah, was Lech Lecha. And I always say to my birthright groups and whatnot, to do is to do. Like, you can't just talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. So one of the reasons my regular service as a lone soldier in Givati, why I was so adamant about being a combat medic, because it's knowledge for life. It's not like, what do you do in the army? I was a sniper, I was this, I was that. When you're a medic, you're a medic. As a parent, as a member of society, it gives you tremendous good outside employment. I worked with MAD, I worked with groups right after as a combat medic. It doesn't go away. There were many people my age who tried to push their way back into the army. And the army's like, we don't want an overweight ex-infantry guy who was in Golani 30 years ago because we have to pay your salary. It's not relevant. But medic is a medic is a medic. It's something you don't forget. It's like riding
since October 7th.
It's like riding a bike, and it's Avodat Kodesh. It's holy work. So when I somehow got back into the base, which I can't really, not at liberty to say because I'd have to shoot you. I spent an hour and a half literally selling myself to different units. And eventually one of the units, Palma Asaf is the name of the MMP, the commanding officer. One of the doctors in the unit asked me questions, saw I knew my stuff. And he said, I think the word he used was enthusiastic. Like, we'll take you, we need you.
How do you say enthusiastic in Hebrew?
Malay merits.
Oh, Malay merits, okay.
So then I went to, my biggest battle, honestly, was fighting the army bureaucracy, because even though they said they'd take me, it took me another day and a half to convince the bureaucrat. It's also a startup nation, but our bureaucracy is still pretty medieval, and I'm as Zionist as they come, but I can tell you that. But
they do it to keep, they just want you to have things
their first
in here.
knee-jerk
They're
reaction,
not going to give you anything
They said
easy.
to me, like, what's your personal number? And I give blah, blah, blah. And they said, sorry, you're not even in the system. You haven't been in the army 15 years. No. First thing they say is no. It's called the Clark mentality. But they never come up with, there's two words they did know, which is Tuvia Book. And I just, you know what? I'm just going to sit here and drive you nuts. I've got a sleeping bag and again, your veins. I'm going to stay here till you put me back in. And that's how I got back in. But the real thing for me, which I found fascinating in my unit just personally, is that I thought I had a crazy story. Everyone has a crazy story. Everyone does. And I write about it in my book about not just what the unit does, but who are the people that make the unit, the young people, the old people, from all different backgrounds and walks of life, just to tell you one story, which is in my book about.
Oh, tell me all the stories. This is great. I don't have to ask you any
questions.
questions.
There's a guy, Dr. Ari, who was doing a subspecialty in utero surgery. That's like surgery on the unborn baby. There's 4 in Israel. He's now the 5th. So he was in the UK doing the subspecialty. He's got 3 kids under the age of 10. And he just came out and he was serving with us for months and months and months. And before he went back, he said, I just want you guys to know, I was in the ambulance with him that came with our wife's blessing. I thought, that's nice, happy wife, happy life, whatnot. Then he told us a crazy stat. He said that his wife has stage 4 breast cancer. And she said, listen, what's going to happen to me is going to happen to me. But you go and save lives. That's what you put on this planet to do. Like goosebumps. And everyone has stories.
The self-sacrifice was...
It's beyond beggars belief. Yeah. We had young people. One guy just was 2 weeks into his post-army trip in India, just dropped everything, came back. Another guy was in Argentina, just five flights to get back in again.
There were so many memes on the internet. Like that we are the only people who come running back, pay overpriced tickets to get here during a war.
Well, without getting into politics, there's 2 kinds of people people in Israel. There's those that take and don't serve and don't give. And there's those that give everything. They're the two kinds of people we have in Israel. And that really is the split with the nation. There are plenty of people in Israel who don't feel the way I feel the new soldiers feel. They don't feel they need to serve because they let someone else do that for them, but they're happy to take millions of dollars of state funding. And then there's those that will do anything to serve. It's not just the old, it's the young. Our paramedic in my ambulance, he donated a kidney a month before the war. He has 6 children. 3 of them were serving in Gaza, and he was too old. And he also forced his way back into the army as well. They say, Mika Macha Yisrael. It's just amazing who's like the people of Israel. So that was the first battle. So the second battle we fought was a crazy story, and that was the battle to get equipment. So the army claimed that every soldier, and there was a lot of people going into the army. I think if I remember correctly, 360,000 soldiers were drafted. And lunatics like me who forced their way back in. So the army said everyone got a helmet, everyone got a vest, everyone got equipment, which is true. However, I looked inside the helmet. It literally said 1973.
But where?
That is like the Yom Kippur
I was there
War.
delivering helmets.
That was 50 years
You
ago.
don't know, we made the soldiers' lives when we brought them. Not only do they save lives, the comfort, but they couldn't believe that we pulled it off in the amount of helmets that we purchased.
So
These are true.
1973.
Sad but true.
Heavy, don't stop bullets. The flak jackets we were given, you can't even make this up, were in the original plastic wrapping from Vietnam era. This is the 1960s, all the English instructors of the American army. They wouldn't stop at a pebble, never mind flak or an actual bullet. And that's what we were given. We literally looked like the Keystone Cops, like some kind of extras for some like Wild West movie. Like Falangot.
But that was not for that too long. Eventually we got things sorted out. The soldiers are looking...
In my unit, the reason is me. Like I thought they'd call me Saba Tuvia or something like Grandfather Tuvia because I was at least 2 decades older than the next youngest person.
What's your nickname?
Instead, my nickname's Santa Claus because every time I came,
they're like,
"What have we got? What have we got?" If you like, look at the cover of the front of the book here. Every single thing that I'm wearing is donated. My helmet, my vest, the ceramic plates inside, the tactical uniform, the boots. Even the dust goggles, even the gun strap, the schlucker, what's that called? What's the schluckers called? I forgot.
A straw?
No, the water backpack, the camel bag, the camel bag.
Thermos, okay,
You know,
yeah.
Everything's donations. So I'm lucky because I work as a tour guide and I have some very well-heeled clients who have been very successful in life, thank God. Very Zionist, they love Israel. And even though they don't live in Israel, their first question is, what can we do? So it wasn't a them and us. One thing this war has shown us that we are one family. Am echad belev echad, as they say, one nation, one heart. So I have some incredibly generous clients, people who I'd actually personally call my friends. And because I was in this unit and they knew who I was, when I told them without BSing, this is what we need. Like we're literally going under fire to save soldiers' lives. And we have equipment that will not protect us. The pockets just opened. And I'm very humbled to say that in the course of the last 2 years, I've managed to collect over 4 million shekels, which is about $1,200,000.
You are a busy man.
And that's just on the side. I have zero experience in fundraising.
How did you? Okay, let's focus a drop on what you actually do, which is combat medicine.
So the first thing was to get the equipment so we could do the combat medicine.
True. So I remember after October 7th, we would watch the helicopters, we would see the footage, and we knew every second was crucial from getting the soldiers across the country to the hospitals they needed to get that specialized in the injuries that they had. I visited them in the hospitals. We raised money for iPhones and for laptops, and we saw the amputees and the brain surgeries that were taking place and the damage, the physical toll that this war took on our boys. The visions, the visuals are seared into my brain. Okay, you've seen it all. I don't have to tell you. Talk a little bit about where the Army was at their peak as far as saving the boys' lives, which by us is an absolute priority. We are the people. We are the Army. The Army is us. And what you learned after October 7th as far as the importance in advancing where we're at so that we can save lives, which we did.
So
many.
I would say, the holy trinity of saving lives is A, speed, B, medical technology, and C, the professionalism of the actual crew themselves. So as far as speed goes, as you mentioned in your opening, Once upon a time, till 1954, people thought it was impossible for a human body to run a sub 4-minute mile. And then Roger Bannister came along, this amateur athlete in Oxford, and shattered that. So once upon a time, before this current conflict, people thought it was impossible to get a soldier from the middle of a battle to an OR in less than an hour. And we've also shattered that as well. So speed is super important. The second thing, of course, is the tech. The tech is literally like some science fiction technology. So, for example, every mass casualty event, there's one of the soldiers in the unit. He has something. It looks about the size of this book over here. It's like an iPad. It's called the Tufis Me'evachad, a 101 form. It's all digital, and they're recording exactly what's going on in the treatment, which is getting beamed to the incoming helicopters, which is getting beamed also to the hospital at the end. So everyone's following the treatment, the seamless treatment the whole time.
So there's not just the 3 people that are there on the ground. There's a
It's a lot more
whole
than 3
team
people.
of people.
There's a whole
Everything
team.
goes into motion.
There's doctors, there's paramedics, there's combat medics, there's fighting soldiers. It's a whole team.
And explain, and you can be as graphic or as
The
you
whole
please,
team.
but explain what that looks like. Let's say the difference between something that 20 years ago would have been a casualty and not.
First of all, they didn't have that kind of tech. So, for example, today, if someone has a blocked airway, we have like literally fiber optic cables that can go inside and see where the blockage is. We have machines that can scan the body, like portable ultrasound, just check out when there's internal bleeding. We're giving actual blood. We're not using a plasma substitute. We're the only military in the world that uses O negative, which is universal donor.
Mm-hmm.
We have climate control blood that comes with us into the field. So I would say anyone who's visiting Israel, who lives in Israel, who's amongst the 10% of people that actually do have O negative blood, donate. That's what saves lives. So every 3 months you can donate. And every 2 weeks we have to throw away the blood if we don't use it and get more blood. So O negative is universal donor. It's 10% of the population, just like 10% who's left-handed, but 10% also who's O negative. I happen to fall in both of those categories. So we're using real blood. We're using this incredible technology. The treatment is continuous as well. So just to show an example that your listeners might be familiar with, Princess Diana, when she was initially injured in that car crash under the bridge in the tunnel in Paris, she was alive and she was conscious and she was communicating. She literally spent 2 hours trapped in a car and died of internal bleeding. That wouldn't happen in Israel because the treatment would start straight away and carry on all the way through.
They couldn't excavate her, and
You could treat her in the car. You could have treated her in the car.
And they didn't have medics
They
there.
waited. There was people there. They were just looking and waiting until they got her out of the car, and that's why she died. It was preventable, and in Israel that wouldn't have happened. So that's one of the reasons their lives are saved. The treatment is absolutely seamless from the moment they're wounded, and the embedded medical team are working on them right till they get to OR. Crazy examples, we once evacuated a soldier from the Al-Quds unit, which is the K9 unit.
Mm-hmm.
And his pain level was pretty high, had some very serious injuries. We brought in a Black Hawk helicopter in order to come, and from the 669 unit, and he'd already had 2 portions of morphine, and he was off the charts with pain, so we were about to give him ketamine, and they said the helicopter's landing in 10 seconds. So you can't tell the helicopter to wait in the middle of a combat zone. Plus, they're not armored anyway, so they're on the ground for like 25 seconds. But because of the 101 form, they knew exactly where we were with the treatment. They knew the vein was open. We hadn't yet administered the ketamine. So as soon as it landed, bam, we rushed this guy to the helicopter, got on. There was already a paramedic waiting with the ketamine to carry on the treatment. So it's totally seamless treatment all the way through.
Everybody's in the know.
So that's what helps save lives. And the professionals, everyone knows what they have to do. You can't just have everyone doing everything.
And also, you're working under intense pressure. As we're recording, I can't tell if that's thunder or if that's Iran missiles being taken out here overhead. We're in the middle of the war, but you're also working under this environment where there's explosions and your blood pressure rises, and as a medic, your temperament, I'm assuming, is stay calm and handle these emergencies. But how do people handle emergencies? Tell us a little bit about how the soldiers handle them, how the commanders handle them. What have you seen in these worst of times? Because that's when the best of people come out.
Well, there's 2 things. One is that as a part of the medical crew, you have to compartmentalize. You leave your emotions on the ambulance. You got to go there.
Skill shows up,
and you got to be focused and practice.
Yeah.
When we are not inside,
muscle memory.
We're not inside. We're not playing tiddlywinks. We're actually practicing all the time. This is a very special doctor called Dr. Deborah Gershoff West, who was head of the emergency medicine in Asuta Hospital in Ashdod. She now full-time works for this training unit called FEM, which is Frontline Emergency Medicine. She's an Australian immigrant originally. And she comes to all the different medical units and frontline communities, and she trains with a whole team and trains and trains and trains. And that's what we do. We also have internal army training. We have the FEM training, and we're
Medical
always,
ninjas.
we're always training. So when it comes to the actual, they say in Hebrew, kasher be'imonim kal bekrav, which is like if the training is difficult, then the actual combat will be a lot easier. And so that's one thing we're training a lot. The other interesting thing is we have mental health professionals who are attached to our unit. So every week we have a mandatory debrief, and they're available 24/7. So whatever you want, because some of the sites you see are pretty shocking.
I was going to ask if you have
to come on to
emotional
utilize.
support.
Listen, you see, not everyone unfortunately makes it. Sometimes we just, with all our efforts, you can't save them. Sometimes they come to us and they've already entered eternity. And you see horrific wounds as well, young kids without legs and screaming and a lot of craziness going on. There's a lot of blood and guts. It's not like the movies where everything's slow motion with classical music. It's chaos, total chaos. And let's not forget that 1 out of 5 casualties is what they call friendly fire, or eshkochotenu, which is like, it's total chaos.
Can you explain a little bit about that for people to understand?
War's
Dangerous business.
War is chaotic. It's not choreographed.
You know, I actually went with my kids to play what's it called, paintball shooting right by the Gaza border. We went during the war. I mean, when things were calm enough to come closer to the border. And I remember the paintballs hitting me, and they bruise. They're pretty strong. You're laughing, but this was the closest that I got to what it would feel like to be in a combat zone. And everything I knew flew out the window. I was just completely, obviously I'm not a soldier, but my point is it's like you said, completely not the movies. And do you have the support that you need to manage that?
Yes, I mentioned we have mental health care professionals. One of the psychology works for our unit, his name's Chen. He lives in Efrat, and his parents are American, so he speaks like mother language English, even though he's Israeli. So he's like, we chat all the time, just friendly chat as well. So we every unit has these. They're called kaban, which is Katzin Biyut Nefesh, which is literally means an officer who's psychologist, psychiatrist, and we have it. But the interesting thing is when you come to evacuate soldiers, no matter how serious the wound, they always have the same first question. You would assume it would be like, how badly wounded am I? But instead, the first question is, when can I go back? And that's the selflessness of what we're talking about, where they don't think about themselves, they think about their brothers and their unit. I want to go back. Now, some of them are not going back, but still a first question, like, when can I go back?
Wow.
Which is quite incredible.
Yeah. Do you feel like you mentioned earlier about the parts of our society that don't contribute the way that you feel that they should, or the way that they should?
You don't want to get me started on that.
No, I know we could get started on that, but I want to focus more on what you're doing. And we've addressed that on the show and how we feel about it, or how I feel about it. And I don't mince words when it comes to
don't go there with me. Yeah.
But so you here you are. You're not an outsider. You're certainly not an outsider. I said you are like Israel personified, a Sabra through and through. If not by nature, then by nurture. At this point, you've been through everything that your most hardcore Israeli can ever experience. Okay, and you've put it in your book that people can order on Amazon. The link is in the show notes. I'm going to take this copy. So do you feel that the army is the great unifier? I've seen soldiers with rastot, with the guys that look like Hulks and little Taimani guys, and guys that, it runs the gamut, not just guys, girls too, it runs the gamut. Do you feel that the army is the great unifier? Speak a little bit about what the experience is as far as the mentality, and why that produces, in my opinion, and so many people's opinion, the incredible people that Israelis are. After they leave the army, they have the success and the skill and we are a country defined by its people, and our people are defined by the army experience. Right. What have you seen as far as the people go?
So first of all,
our heroes are boys in green
and girls. There's a expression just a saying that, like, you're only a true Israeli when you know somebody buried on Mount Herzl, which is Amakom Kadosh, holy place. And that didn't take me long. I just finished basic training in Givati when my officer was killed in my unit, a guy called Alex Singer. There's a book about him also published by Geffen called Building a Life, and I dedicate my book to him as well. He was killed on his 25th birthday, an American immigrant, Cornell graduate, amazing guy. So that's already puts you apart. When there's a segment of this country who Memorial Day is Memorial Day. It's not like in America with barbecues and sales. It's an incredibly somber day, and it's always the day before Independence Day. And without a Memorial Day, we wouldn't have Independence Day. So there's a large part of this country that's directly affected, and there's another part of this country that is not, because they've lost nobody in their community, and it just sails right over their head because they're in Savos Hashem, the army of God, so they don't need to go to the actual army. And that's already one thing. Let's talk about the positive side. So the army, for me, is the great unifier. It really, really is. There's something called Chesed Shel Emet, which in Judaism is like true kindness. So usually when someone goes to a funeral, they go to a shiva house, the person's not going to thank them because they're dead. So you go there because it's just the right thing to do. And about a month after the war started, we were in the cemetery of Kibbutz Be'eri. That was our jump off to go into Gaza when we got called in. And a truck from Misad HaBitachon, from the defense ministry, pulled up, and they had a tombstone. Because in Judaism, on the Shloshim, on the 30th day, you put up the tombstone in Israel. And we were in a closed military zone, obviously. And I write about this in my book as well. I call it True Kindness. And we saw they were putting up a military tombstone for one of these soldiers who was also a Ben Kibbutz, someone from that kibbutz who'd been killed on the 7th of October. And obviously his family wasn't there and his friends weren't there because it was a closed military zone. So we were all there with all our combat gear on, which, by the way, weighs about 50 pounds, with all the ceramic plates and the medical gear and the ammo and stuff. We were there ready to go in, and we saw this tomb marker being put on, and we said, you know what? It was almost like a ripple that went through all the soldiers there. We can't just let this happen by himself. He's one of our brothers. We never met him, but he's a brother in arms. So we're going to go and say a Kaddish and give him the respect that's due to him as someone who fell fighting for our country. So we lined up around this fresh grave. It was only a month old. So they put the tombstone on. We looked up at the Ministry of Defense side who he was. His name was Idan Baruch. We read about him. And here's the interesting part. Then we said Kaddish. Now, Israel is very much like what shul you go to, what synagogue you go to, or what you don't go to. And unlike the United States or other countries, it's not like reform, conservative, not so much. It's either religious or secular. It's pretty black and white in Israel, generally speaking. But here we have a whole bunch of people, and there's also 30% of our unit are female soldiers. So we had men, we had women, we had people with tattoos, people with kippot, people who weren't Jewish, left-wing, right-wing, religious, secular, all standing around this new plot, all saying the Kaddish together. Now, you would never, ever see that outside of an army context. You just wouldn't, because people are put into a bubble of their religious practice. In the army, it's the great equalizer. No one actually cares. Our two lead doctors, one of them is totally secular. He has a same-sex partner. He's got a piercing. He's got tattoos. He works side by side with a guy who lives in Judea and Samaria with tzitzit and a kippah and everything. And they literally work shoulder to shoulder, saving lives. You do not see that outside. And just to throw something else religious in, the first uniting chief rabbi of Israel, before pre-state rabbi, his name was Rabbi Abraham Isaac Cook, Avraham Yitzhak Cook, and one of his famous statements was, we lost our temple because of something called sinat chinam, or causes hatred, Jew against Jew. We'll only ever get our redemption. We have something called ahavat chinam, which is recognizing what we have in common and not what divides us. Unfortunately, in Israel, you only see that in the army. And if we could just replicate that to the outside society, we would be in a much better place. So to answer your question, yes, the army is still the great unifier. It was when I was in basic training all those decades ago, and it still is today. It fascinates me.
Well, it is fascinating, and I've spent a lot of time on army bases, and I've read a lot of books about the mentality, and even though I don't know if I'll ever have the opportunity, although I did say that there should be a unit for mothers who need to get away because they have a lot of energy and they could be very useful. I'm just saying it should be an option. Iran, not a hypothetical anymore. We're watching a country that says openly that they want to erase us, and they have the infrastructure to do it, as they've been proving. Listen, we are doing a fine job protecting our citizens, and we're rock stars on that level. I think everyone knows. We have America, the elephant, Israel, the busy bees getting the job done. But you've been on the front lines of what happens when things get real, when threats become real. Are Israelis prepared for what's going on, for what's coming, psychologically, spiritually?
I think that Israel is one of the few countries in the world that's not allowed to win a war. Like there's always as soon as the Jews start winning, the non-Jews say, okay, ceasefire. No. The reason why there's no Nazism in the world is because there was an unconditional surrender at the end of World War II. The Nazis tried to say, listen, we'll have a conditional surrender. And the Allies said to them, we'll just do another Dresden over and over again until there's an unconditional surrender.
Sounds familiar.
That's how World War II ended, unconditional surrender. And then denazification, which also took a few years as well. And only then did the Truman Plan come in and the rebuilding. And today, Germany is one of Israel's greatest allies. Our entire nuclear submarine fleet comes from Germany. Who would have thought, right? So that's the way this war has to end, with unconditional surrender and regime change. As long as there's still Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza and the fanatical lunatic regime in Iran, it's just that then my children or my grandchildren just have to carry on with the next cycle. We need to finish a war. And I think this latest Iran cycle has showed the resilience of the people. Yes, this morning alone, there was about 7 sirens just in this area. And people are doing it over and over again because they understand we can't just keep stopping the whole time and waiting for the next time. There's no deals to be made with lunatics.
People
There's
understand
no deals,
right,
to be made with people who have no compunction in lying, because as far as they're concerned, they can lie.
We have no choice.
It's what Golda Meir called this a milchemet ein bera. All our wars are wars without a choice. We're surrounded we're in a very bad neighborhood. We don't live in New Zealand. We're surrounded by a bunch of lunatics who want to kill us. We'd like to wake up and see no enemies. And they'd like to wake up and see no Jews. It's not going to happen. So we have to learn to live with the Arabs around us. And there are many who want to see that as well. It's not just the United Arab Emirates, now Saudi Arabia and Bahrain and all these other countries are realizing, we would rather be in a peaceful coexistence.
Deal with Israel than jihadi maniacs.
We have to deal with lunatic Shiites.
Yeah. Toddlers with missiles.
That's even them. Don't forget that Iran has shot far more missiles at its Muslim neighbors, even during the holy month of Ramadan, than it shot at Israel. So when you can't look at this with a rational, logical approach.
You need to say it louder for the Americans who didn't show up at the college campuses to protest about what's happening in Iran.
The American Democratic Party that's been very, very
That's what I'm saying. We're made of different stuff here. By the time you finish your army service and experience 3-4 wars in your lifetime, you just don't see the same world, the same way anymore.
Israelis generally are a lot more mature. My doctoral thesis is on the mifgash of birthright of the Israeli soldiers when they meet the American college kids. It's about cross-cultural peer education.
Yeah, we've interviewed those college kids here.
And the maturity levels are just mind-numbing. I once asked one of the Israeli soldiers, female soldiers, why they're not into the American boys. And she said, because they're babies. Like our kids are very mature. If you ever read the book Startup Nation by Dan Senor and Saul Singer, their thesis, which I happen to agree 100% with, is the reason why Israel is the 3rd most traded country on NASDAQ. The reason why we're the Startup Nation is because of the military service.
Sure.
Our school system is pretty mediocre, let's be honest.
We don't have time to go to school between COVID and the wars.
The high school is pretty mediocre, let's be honest.
Because I think there's an expectation that the growth is happening afterwards.
The army lets you think out of the box. It lets you improvise, lets you work under pressure. And that's what makes us who we are. It gives us a tremendous amount of maturity, those who serve.
I went to the beach with my friends in the evening. We're just sitting around playing guitar. And we saw these 15, 16-year-olds doing these, I don't know what they're called, knee crawls, elbow crawls in the sand and walking around, girls and boys. In America, a 15-year-old who would have to stand at night on the beach on a windy evening carrying something, let alone a sack of sand, knowing that this is not even army training. This is pre-army training. It's just part of our mentality here. We have no choice. This is, like you said.
Listen, at the end of the day, I remember at the end of basic training, I was in a unit called Givati, which is like a combat infantry marine unit. We had to swear a oath at the Western Wall. It's called a tikkut hashpah, where they give you a rifle and they give you a Bible. If you're Jewish, it's the Jewish Bible. If you're Christian, it's a Christian Bible. If you're Druze, you get your holy book. We even have bedroom trackers that swear in on a Quran, which people can't get their head around, the fact that there's Muslim soldiers in the army who get a rifle and a Quran. But anyway, so my Hebrew wasn't so good because I went to day school. So I wanted to see the words when I was swearing. It's quite an important thing. You're 18 years old, you're swearing an oath at the holiest site in the Jewish religion. That's why we have Kol Nidre. Oaths are very important. And I was reading these words. It said, like, I swear an oath of allegiance to the state of Israel to protect Jews wherever they are and Israeli citizens. Va'af lakriv et nafshi, and if necessary, to sacrifice my life. Now, you take those words and you look at your average 18-year-old kid in the United States. If they're going to swear an oath at all, if you're to a fraternity or a sorority in college, and they're all going to, if they're going to die, it's probably from alcohol poisoning from drinking too much. Whereas you got kids in Israel who are literally, selflessly swearing an oath to lay down their lives for their country, for their people. And that's what makes Israel Israel. It really, really does.
Why aren't you a spokesperson for this country? You're so eloquent and passionate, and everything you say makes perfect sense. You have some issues with and I don't want to say the community, because we are part of a Hasbara community and we do spend our time. I use social media to reach people all over the world and send a pro-Zionist, pro-Israel message, obviously. But are we losing that war? And is that something that you're as equally passionate as about actually fighting on the ground here? Because those are two different things. Most people are doing one or the other. You have your foot in both.
Well, part of the reason why I sound the way I sound is because anyone with a British accent sounds intelligent.
Sure.
I could just
you can do all the recordings in this country.
Read the football scores and you say, "Wow, he's so smart." That's
but you wrote a book. You're an author and you're a doctor and you're okay.
That's Liverpool 3, Manchester United 2. Wow, he's so smart. So the accent does help, but the amount of times I've been abroad, and I've lectured about Israel in Australia, in Canada, in the United Kingdom, all over the United States. And people always come up to me and say exactly what you just said. Why is Israel so bad at explaining itself? And I give the same answer. And I'm going to share this answer with you. If you really believe that we're one family, then you should say, not why is Israel so bad at explaining itself? You should say,
why are we?
Israel is bad at explaining itself, and therefore, because it's my family, these are my brothers and sisters, I'm not living in Israel, I'm not serving in the army, what can I do? I can make sure that Israel's image is better. Why did Margaret Thatcher win the election in the UK back in the day? Because she hired a PR company called Saatchi and Saatchi, two Iraqi Jewish brothers, and that's why she won.
So you want everyone to just
plenty
pitch
of Jews. There's plenty of Jews
They're not using their
who work in
platforms?
advertising agencies. There's plenty of Jews who have money. There's plenty of Jews who are concerned about Israel's image.
So put your money where your mouth is?
This is our way to fight. We're not putting on the uniform. We're not going to the front lines.
Okay,
it's a Jewish question. Anyone who loves Israel and cares about Israel, passionate about Israel, you chip in, because Israel is bad.
Okay, so that actually brings me into the next thing I wanted to ask you. You're very passionate about people donating money. You raise a ton of money. I have uncles who've given and family, and it's a really big deal, because when you're in America, you don't think about these things. You don't feel the intensity.
Just yesterday, someone wrote to me, one of my former clients from a tour guiding world, and said, I'm feeling terrible. I'm watching these images on the TV.
What can I do?
I've got to do something. What can I do?
Send money.
It just so happens, well, the best thing you can do is to come here, but right now it's not actually not an option so much with 50 people in an hour.
Tell me.
So I said, right now what you can do is I will tell you what you can do. We're in a combat medical unit. Our particular unit is short of supplies. You have new people coming in. This is what we need. This is a 501c3 you can donate to, and we will get it. And that's what they did. They felt so much better, because at the end of the day, the worst thing than not doing something is not doing anything.
Right.
So they had to, whatever it is.
Can you do with a misconception that the money's going nowhere? I have bought heaters for soldiers. I have bought Erev Shabbos rugelach for soldiers, the smallest things. And it's not because our soldiers don't have food. I've had peers. I've had friends who are soldiers, acquaintances who are soldiers tell me that the meals have actually very much improved. There's a lot of meat now.
Depends where you're serving.
On the northern border, the guys need to beef up. It's very cold there.
I don't think we had any Michelin stars for our
but considering what Army grub could look like, in any case. So there was this just surplus of money that came in that just spilled into Israel at the beginning. We're not quite there yet, and not only that, my donors are not giving it like they used to. My donors are a little more hard pressed. They want to know.
Fatigue.
Yeah, they want to know, why am I spending 1,000 shekel on a uniform? I'm like, okay, because yes, uniforms are available, but the soldiers who are standing in the heat or in the cold and, are carrying their stuff, whatever, these uniforms are more practical. They're more comfortable. Not only that, they're more sustainable. They're fireproof. They're waterproof, whatever it is. They dry quick. Yeah, and it costs $350 each. But you know what?
So-
the soldier who's standing in it for 3 weeks every single night in Mishmarot, it's a completely different experience for him. And you are a partner in his success.
So, true. I mean, the last thing I read, I have a friend and colleague called Daniel Polisar, who's also raised ridiculous amounts of money for soldiers. And I've read that as much as the army protests, oh, we're giving them everything, they're not. And the last number I read is that $1.5 billion has been raised by diaspora Jews. And that's an incredible thing as well.
Since the war?
Since the war started, $1.5 billion,
Yes,
not
$1.5
million,
billion,
billion,
yes,
right?
correct.
And it might seem things that people don't understand. Like, for example, I'm wearing boots which are called lower, right? I can tell you they cost about 1,000 shekels a pair of boots. And they're so far superior to the
About $300.
military issue boots, simply because the military issue boots, once they're wet, your feet are wet. They're made of old-fashioned dark leather material. These boots are super light and waterproof and Gore-Tex.
No,
and
when you
they're-
think
and they're
about it, every
comfortable.
soldier should have wool socks.
I'm walking around with 50 pounds of gear on me. I want to make sure that my feet are protected from the weather, and they're comfortable. So these are the things that people don't understand. When we first came in, we did not have ceramic plates. Now they're bloody heavy, but we'd rather be heavy and safe. They can literally stop a 7.62 Kalashnikov bullet. Literally, the plate will break. You might break a few ribs, but you'll be alive. And those plates cost $550
Yes, we raised them for
a set.
Kitatit Konanut.
The Kevlar helmets cost $550. Are they heavy? Yes.
By the way, war.
Do they
Somebody's
save lives?
making a lot of money.
Yes.
Somebody's a lot of money. I feel like this is all going back to Qatar, but that's a different conversation.
the-
The war industry
Okay.
cashing it
So
in.
there's definitely war profiteers. But the thing that really bothers me a lot about this whole issue, and I'm not going to name names here. I can do it offline if you want.
Oh,
but
okay.
there are certain organizations which are very top heavy. That means people are donating. They have a very catchy name. And you know, Mavin, as they say, those who need to understand will understand.
Correct.
And they get executives who get a huge amount of money.
Right.
And that equipment is not getting to the people
By
who
the way,
need
it's
it.
not even legal for people to donate money for equipment from other countries. So a lot of this money
Depends on the
goes
country.
to.
In Australia and Canada is really problematic. And then in the United States, you can do it, but it's
I
difficult.
know, but exactly. So a lot of
So
this
there's
money
one
goes
particular
to,
organization which has a very catchy name. Their executives are super got padded pockets, and they're, as you mentioned, they're war profiteers, for lack of any better word. And I once called this organization like a month into the war and said, I said, brothers,
where are you guys now?
we are going in to save soldiers' lives. We don't have the equipment. We need X, Y, and Z.
They said fill out a
in a
form?
nutshell, no, they told me to F off and put the phone down. I called them twice. And their money that they do get donated by, besides going to executives' pockets, goes to very echelon troops who don't really need it. The frontline combat troops. I put an article here in my Times of Israel blog, and it says, and I'll open it up to show it you, because after the battle to get back in again, the next battle was equipment. And it says, where are the ceramic vests for our combat IDF troops? I put this on our Times of Israel blog. And people start saying, what do you mean you don't have ceramic vests? What do you mean you're going into the combat zone and you don't have these vests? And that's how my whole thing started. And I just think that the easiest way for me to raise funds is no middlemen, no one lining their pockets. And there's a guy called, and I'm going to give him a shout out because he deserves it, a guy called Ari Briggs, who lives in Manana. On the first day of the war, he has 5 sons. One of his sons was an elite unit and went in and got this crazy joke Keystone Cop equipment. He said, my son's in an elite unit and not getting the relevant equipment. This must be a real problem. Now we can talk about where those funds would have gone, the funds that's supposed to go for getting equipment. And that's something I did want
But
to
today,
talk.
where
Something I
should
wanted
people
to
send
avoid
it?
here too.
But where should people send it today? Because I know that when you start thinking about sending money abroad,
if
you wonder.
Right. So the best thing to do is a 501c3, because that way you get a tax rebate as well. It's a tax write-off. And there's one particular organization which I can recommend, and it's called the Central Fund of Israel. It's a 501c3. This is for American viewers, American listening. They have an account, a One People Israel account. You donate to this 501c3, the Central Fund of Israel, and as a reference, you can put on the following. It's a code, it's a number, and in the reference, you just put in capital letters OPL010, and that gets to the troops with no middle people. Literally,
That's
like
huge.
you're giving in, say you give in $1,000. That $1,000 goes for equipment and gets to the troops. There's no middle people. No one's making money off it. And yes, unfortunately, people are gullible, and people are, and there's also
Greedy.
people who are greedy, and there's people who are sharks, and there's certain organizations that are not doing what they say they're doing, even though they have the catchy name and you think that they are. I can tell you that's a guaranteed one. We would have been in a situation when the war first started where someone would donate. If they had like just for one helmet, which is $550, by the way, they would donate $550 for a helmet. The next day, Ari will be coming down to the front line with that one helmet.
That's right.
You know, and that's what you need. You need an organization with no middle people where you donate, you get the 501c3, and the soldier gets a helmet.
And it's totally possible. And it's happening.
And every unit has people like me who know people. And that's how to get it. And it's still, I know there is donor fatigue, there is. But here we are 2.5 years later, and there's still short. There's people who are leaving the units, people coming back into the units. Just recently I said to my commanding officer, I said, what if you had a wish list, like what would you ask for? He said, you know what? There's these straps over here which are very thick and very padded. And it really makes it a lot more comfortable to carry a gun when you've got another 50 pounds of equipment on as well. I'd love
this tag?
This particular thing.
It looks like a guitar strap. Very nice.
It's made by a company called Meron Dolphin.
How much is it?
It's cost...
Can I get one for my guitar?
It's also very nicely padded as well. I just priced them out. So 100 of them cost like $4,500. I think it's like 156 shekels a strap.
Nice.
Right?
And you can get them for a whole unit. I love that.
15% discount. And so he said, that's what we really need, because we've got so much equipment to just make life a lot easier when you're treating wounded soldiers. You don't want everything coming down, your guns cutting in. So immediately I put out a few emails to people who I know from the first round, and they were just incredible people, and they all just everyone stepped up.
So I think we have our answer. Yes, I think we have our answer.
You need to know someone personally and you need to know them, and you need to know the organization you're going to.
And also you need to know that if you're not here, you should be donating.
You should be donating. And
I know the economy is tough in America and all that, but still,
as soon as the skies open up, you need to actually come here and give a hug to all the Israelis. And if you happen to be O negative blood, you need to donate blood as well to universal donor.
Oh gosh!
But the bottom line is, Theodore Roosevelt, I'm going to quote him, an American president, not FDR, but his cousin, said, everyone has to do whatever you can, wherever you are, with whatever you have. And I love that quote, because it means you can't say, well, I'm not in Israel, what can I do? In Judaism, there's an expression, Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor. It's not for you to finish the work, but you can't stand back and say, let someone else do it. Lo tabenchum or batchum nevatel mimena. You got to do whatever you can do.
That's why our tag is Biachad Nenatzech.
Right, to Jewish to do. And that's also for our non-Jewish friends as well. I have non-Jewish friends who love Israel and love the Jewish people, who've also been making donations. We have non-Jews in our unit. One of the craziest stories, we have a Druze guy who's got even though he's way too old, got on his motorbike like me, drove down for 4 hours to his Druze village and forced his way back into the army. So what is important are the people more than anything else. And that's what the Bible said. Tivnu li mikdash v'shechanti b'tocham. If you build me a temple, I'll dwell in them. It's the people that make this nation holy, and those who serve and those who give.
You are amazing. You really are. I thought that I would have to pry things out of you. I mean, I don't know why I thought that. You're an author and an educator at your core.
By the way, it's not just one book. This is my 5th book. I've written I have 2 books on Jewish history called Jewish Journeys.
I just discovered that you were in the same Intel group. So I had to do like quick research on you. I didn't have time to read any of your books. And also we don't have Amazon here. Plus we're in the middle of a war, so I couldn't get my hands on your book. But now that I'm going to read it.
The books are published by Cohen, all my other books. This is the one that's published by Geffen, but the others are all published by Cohen. So if you just go to Tuvia Book on the site, books on Zionism, books on Jewish history.
Well, I certainly am going to read that. And I encourage everyone watching to click on the links in the show notes. We're going to put the links up for you to reach out to Tuvia if you want to, get in touch, have him come speak. Yes.
Inspirational.
This guy could be your tour. I'll join. If you guys hire Tuvia to be your tour guide, I'll make a surprise visit and we'll have a great day together here.
I'm happy to come to a community. Once you move on from the kind of speakers you have right now and you want something a bit more inspirational, less doom and gloom.
The most inspirational.
Less doom and gloom and good old fashioned for Brent a Zionist, then you know who to reach out to.
I love it. There's a word in Hebrew that doesn't translate so clearly into English, and that word is mesirut nefesh. Okay, mesirat nefesh, it literally means to give over your soul. And it's not a word that we use casually. It's reserved for moments when a person steps past the boundaries of what's comfortable, what's required, and what's safe, and gives something that cannot be measured or repaid. Tuvia Book didn't have to go back. The system released him. There was no obligation, no notice. No one was coming to his door. But there was Shabbat morning, a country on fire, and a man who looked at his old uniform and decided that release was not the same thing as permission to disappear. And I think that's amazing. I really do. I think that's what this conversation is about. Not the statistics, not the details, not all the nitty-gritty things. And by the way, we even get into the Idan Amedi story. You actually saved a very big rock star's life. My daughter's obsessed with him. My daughter's a guitar teacher.
The whole country's obsessed with
Not only
him,
that,
not just your daughter.
Idan Amedi came to a bat mitzvah. He was the uncle of the bat mitzvah girl, and my daughter took a selfie with him, and it was like, and he showed up like everyone else. Why? Because soldier first, singer second. Soldier first.
If you want to just pause there,
Yeah.
I need to give her 2 minutes on Idan Amedi.
Please.
So in January of 2024, a few months after the war, we were called in for a mass casualty event, and it was terrible. I'm like, there was like, we got there, and there was a lot of unfortunately dead soldiers, the huge explosion, and we found this guy who was literally lying on his back, his shirt blown open, dog tags off, black, unrecognizable, not breathing.
It wasn't like a commercial. It wasn't like a publicity stint.
No, unconscious, not breathing. And one of our doctors found a slight pulse on him, and we were all over him. We gave him 8 units of blood. We somehow crazily, we didn't know who he was. We just wrote anonymous 27 on his forehead. That's what hold we thought he was. And when the helicopter was ready to evacuate him, he wasn't ready. He wasn't stable. The second helicopter wasn't stable. Only the third helicopter, we had him manually breathing. And we rescued him. Why? We don't know it was Idan Amedi. It was just a holy soldier who needed to be rescued. Only the next day did we find out who it actually was. So fast forward a year and a half later, last August, I was at an Idan Amedi concert because he's amazing. He gives out free tickets to the soldiers. It took a year and a half of rehab. When we found him, he had broken bones in his hand. You wouldn't believe, like he was as close to death as you could be without actually being dead. And
I didn't realize it was so grave.
It was really, really bad. And let's not forget, he stopped everything at the age of 37, married 2 kids, incredibly famous, not just for Fauda, but also as a singer. When he announced he was coming back to sing, 30,000 tickets sold out in 10 minutes. That's kind of rock star.
He's a huge star. He's also an actor. He's on Fauda, yeah.
He's Sagi in Fauda. So, and if he ran for prime minister, he would definitely win. He's got consensus across the country, but he's not going to because he's honest. So let's go to the moment. So we were at this concert in Bechat Sultansport in Jerusalem. In the middle of the concert, he said, someone told me one of the medics who saved my life is actually at the concert. I'm looking around and thinking, he must be me, but how did he know he was unconscious? So I identified myself, and he came running off the stage. It's in my book. And the moment went viral, like literally viral, had millions of views. The next day I was interviewed at every TV station, all the TV stations in Israel. It was on the radio, everything. And that's when Geffen contacted me and said, we'd love you to write a book about your unit, about your story, how you got to like be there when your unit was there, when Idan Amedi was rescued, all that kind of stuff. And what is amazing about it is it's just the whole, no one really cares. He didn't say, well, I'm famous, I'm a movie star, I'm a rock star.
You saw Justin Timberlake was pulled over for drinking under the influence, and the first thing he said was, I'm on tour. And the police said, what do you mean you're on tour? He said, I'm a big star.
So Idan Amedi the opposite. He just said, you know what? I'm a citizen of Israel. I need to stop my life and to go back, and I need to serve as well. And the crazy thing is, after this and after the concert, he went back to the army as well. He's actually now enlisted back into the army as well. And he's a total role model for our youth. And that's, in essence, if one man sums up what it's all about, is Idan Amedi, because he's the idea of pure service. And that's what
mesirut nefesh, giving up everything,
what this country is, the idea of service.
Really, really amazing. Tuva, you are amazing. Thank you for showing up, for your unit that showed up. 3,000 soldiers. Is that what you said? 3,000 soldiers. Wow.
3,851 so far.
Wow, that's really amazing. I don't know what the future holds for this country, but there's never a dull moment, and I am existentially, say that right. And I am extremely grateful for people like you that give it your heart and soul. I am safer for it. My kids are safer for it. And the people watching and listening abroad are safer for it. And they shouldn't underestimate the the sacrifice that's happening here day in and day out. It's real. And it's because of people like you. So I say this with absolute respect. Thank you for your service. And everybody watching at home, go ahead and order Tuvia's book and subscribe to Moral Edge. This is the weekly squeeze breakdown of Moral Edge. I'm Chanala. Thank you for being here. Thank you.